Hello, welcome to History Chats this afternoon. Yeah, we're going to get started in just a bit. If you're watching live, as always, hang out for a couple minutes until we get started. We'll be getting starting at 12:30. Hopefully not too much delay. It's always kind of hard to time. But anyway, yeah. And if you're watching after the fact and the recording, you can just skip ahead about 3 minutes and that'll get you to the program. But yeah, for those of you who are joining us today, welcome. Yeah, I got an interesting one here today. Hopefully, we'll see. Yeah, it looks like everything is working okay. Just gonna bring up everything just real quick. While we're waiting, let me tell you about something coming up here. So our History Speaks series, this is our lecture series, which is still at this point online, but hopefully at some point we'll be doing some sort of hybrid in-person thing too again. But yeah, it'll be returning this month here, February 26th. So this is, excuse me, not this month or this weekend, but the next weekend, the last weekend in February. And we're going to have a presentation by Rick Ryer of Wisconsin Public Radio, and he's going to be telling us about the history of Wisconsin's public media, both radio, television, and why it's important to get, have public media like this and in the modern era. So I'm sure it'll be a great program. Look forward to seeing that. That'll be, again, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, the 26th at 2 p.m. And you can watch that live here on YouTube or Facebook, on either platform at the Historical Society's page. And it will be preserved late. If you can't join us live, that'll be something that you can watch at any point after that, because we do record these. Yeah. Okay. Just making sure things are working. Looks like this is doing well. Good. Cool. So we are going to be getting into this today. And yeah, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, as always, feel free to put those into the chat or comment section, whatever you're watching on. Might have some time afterwards to talk about it if you're interested in doing that. But I think maybe we'll just get started with the program. Hi. So today we are, this is kind of the basic idea for this month, is basically bits and pieces. So we do history chats every week. I can't tell you the number of times that I put a presentation together and I got everything and there's exciting little stories and tangents, and then I realize that it's going to be a 45-minute talk as is, and so I need to do some trimming and simplifying, and so there's a lot of stuff that just gets kind of left out, just puzzle pieces that don't quite end up fitting in, and so we just kind of have to hope that they fit another puzzle down the line, and so some of those end up becoming the basis for other bigger programs. Earlier this month, I did Sylvester Rice. That was something I did not know about. The first Black athletes or student at the high school here in Marathon County until I was doing research into Win Brockmeyer, and there's the picture. So sometimes things get spun out, but sometimes they're just small little things. And I thought that today it would be kind of interesting to. I'm going to spin a wheel. So on this wheel here, this is a internet site that you can just put a bunch of things in. So we have make a correction. So sometimes we get stuff slightly off. So I've got a couple of these that I can go back and highlight. Expand a story, which, again, sometimes we simplify things. It's kind of revisit an idea and tell a little bit more. Take a tangent. Again, sometimes I can go off on a tangent and I decide, what, that's maybe not something that fits in the program. And so I just kind of hide that slide and don't talk about it. Leftover questions. Sometimes we have questions that we still don't answer, and sometimes I'll acknowledge that as we go. But sometimes it's easier just not to mention it. Like, don't bring up the question that this. And those can be very interesting questions, as you might expect. And then I put share a secret. And what does that mean? Well, we'll find out if it hits it. Otherwise, it'll be a secret. So let me just make sure that I have everything. So we're just going to spin it, and we'll spin it as many times as we have time for, and we'll just kind of go through some stories. Let me make sure I set up a whole special view here so that we can see there we go, cropped thing here. All right, let's see where we land. First spin here. Okay, looks like Expand on Ice story. Yep, all right. Let's see. So, let's let's start with there we go. Let's do this one. So the very last year, I did a program about the Rothschild Pavilion and the park and all the things you can do about it. And I mentioned very briefly the wooden roller coaster that used to be there. It's called the Whizzer, and it was something that existed. We don't exactly know hard when it was built and when it came down, but around 1910 for a few years. It's a wooden roller coaster, but it was very exciting at the time, as you might expect. And I want to read out some accounts. So for 10 cents, so for a dime, you could go take a ride on the Whizzer. Excuse me. That would get you 2 loops around. So that would be your 5 cents per loop, I guess. The Sun, which was one of the local newspapers, kind of short-lived, but one of the newspapers here in Wausau, reported in August 6th, 1910, that, quote, the attraction made a new record of the other day. Henry Peter, 84, went for a ride. He took a half dozen trips around, I guess, before he was satisfied, and claimed it was decided improvement upon any pleasure of his youthful days. Not to be outdone, Joseph Heinemann, 2 months older, rode the circuit and said he received $1 worth for his dime. So that's kind of interesting. This was not just a young person. Everybody got a chance to go on it, and apparently that was very fun. Now, interestingly, the Sun also went a little further, and later that year, on July 30th, 1910, they reported the following. There was an awful catastrophe at Rothschild Park Monday evening when the Whizzer caused the death of 3 persons. The first was a stringy old geezer who let loose of his dime with reluctance. The sensation was so pleasant, probably the only pleasant thing he had ever allowed himself to enjoy, that he dropped dead. His wife was so overjoyed at the termination of her troubles that she was overcome and peacefully passed away. An early day lover of the woman, who had been raised into the 7th heaven of delight, unquote, there, by the prospect of acquiring the widow, was so affected by the second casualty that he jumped into the river and was carried through the sluiceway of the big dam. So apparently in one day, in short order, this killed 3 people. But none of this happened. This is complete fabrication. For whatever reason, they decided to kind of make some stuff up, maybe to highlight how exciting this was. So that's an interesting little story that I didn't really know how to fit in. Like, it just took a little too much time. But yeah, there's the wooden roller coaster that didn't actually, but maybe. And I guess I think in the past I might have mentioned this as being a thing in way years ago, as actually being true. I didn't realize it wasn't actually true, but still kind of cool. All right, let's bring up the wheel, spin again. Okay, so let's see here. There you go. What's going to be next? Ooh, another story? Ooh, tangent. Okay. Let's see, which one are we going to do here? Let's go back to the beginning. So one of the first programs that we did, the first ones that I did a 3-week program on the county health institutions, so the hospitals and the poor farm, the sanitarium, things like that. And I talked at one of the programs about the county home and hospital, which is also lodged in the same building as this. This is the asylum where for the insane. And in that program, I talked a lot about, I think, some of the more interesting aspects of this, which is who gets put in here. Because the asylum was definitely a place where people who had mental problems were treated for their own safety and what have you. There were some definite cases of mental illness or unable to function in society. But it also it was more than that. It was more than just a place where you stash away crazy people, or at the time maybe sometimes people that were, say, poor and couldn't afford. They were seen as a mental illness. You can't hold a job down, like that sort of stuff. Or maybe you just didn't fit into society. You were just kind of spirited away to the asylum. But there's more than that. This is also a place that ended up being like sort of a retirement home type thing. If they're the aged, this is a place that they could get taken care of. But even more than that, and something that I neglected to really talk about, was that the county hospital really was a county hospital. This isn't a time necessarily where you go for checkups or for, you don't even really get babies delivered here like you would today in hospitals. Because back then, I mean, partially this is because they didn't really have room for it here. But this was the place that you'd go to get treated, especially for county people that weren't in Wausau, didn't have access to the hospitals there. This is the place that you would be taken, whether you had, some cancer, smallpox, diphtheria, if you got hit, by a horse or something and needed, broken bones. There's a guy I found, and I can't find it again, but in the research, I came across an article about a guy, this is like 1920, 21, was hit by a car. The car kept driving because cars weren't going very fast and whatever. He survived. He went home. And this is like outside of town, like in the rural area there. And his family just took him to the hospital and he was treated. This is a place that if you had to have your emergency gallbladder removed or, any kind of illness, this was a resource for the entire county, which is something that is very interesting, I think, on its own. But also it led me to this interesting little tidbit, which is an article from 1939 about a potential tri-county hospital that the Farmers Equity Union was promoting. So the idea here is this would be a hospital not just for the county of Marathon County, but it would be for Marathon, Clark, and Taylor counties. And this would be kind of the same thing, sort of a cooperative hospital. And this comes out of the Farmers Equity Union. This is you kind of put yourself in the perspective at this point in time. If you work in a factory or something like that and you need better conditions, you can join a union. Not so popular in the last couple of decades, but that was a way that the working people were able to kind of negotiate and find ways to better their situation in their work jobs. But if you're a farmer, you can't do that. You can band together with other farmers, which is what they tried to do here, and attempt to do things like get healthcare, get education, advocate for legislative change and things like that. Like you can't do that. It's a little harder. And so this is an attempt to try, and it was very popular here in Marathon County and the region. It did have some issues ultimately. Something like if you're a union working in a factory, you're negotiating with the employers, right? The people who own the factory that pay the wages. But if you're a farmer, there's not like a person you're negotiating with. You're just kind of dealing with capitalism, just the market, things like that. So it's a little harder to do. But anyway, one of the interesting outcroppings of this is the idea that, hey, maybe we'll have a hospital, which, it didn't end up happening. But kind of an interesting little tidbit coming out of the hospital, the county hospital and Homan Hospital that I talked about over a year ago now. So there you go. There's another tangent. Let's spin again here. Oh, okay. Correction. Correction. All right. Well, we don't. I don't make. Well, I was going to say I don't make many mistakes. I'm sure I make mistakes. I don't know that I have too many mistakes to share. Okay, okay. Here's one. This will work. Let's do this one. Make a correction. So last March, about a year ago, I did a program on the plat maps. It's for March Mapness. We did different types of maps. I did one on the evolution of the townships in Marathon County. Remember, this is a book. This is a copy of it, but this is a book produced back in the '70s that has. You can't really see it. It has page by page, and it shows the evolution of the townships as people move in, as villages are created out of unincorporated territory, become cities, etc. And it tracks from 1840s to 1910. And I ended up taking that and making a digital version of it. Let's see here. Here you go. So this is our website. If you want to, if you didn't actually get a chance, you go down here and you click this, the evolution of the townships. So I actually redrew all of those things from the '70s and added color and made it interactable so you can go through and see how the county developed. It's very cool. I enjoy the process at least. But one of the things from that thing back in the '70s is this is the first page, 1849, and it's all one township. It's just Big Bull Falls. They haven't even hit on the name Wausau yet. It's still part of Portage County. We wouldn't become our own county until 1850. But it says north to Lake Superior, which, okay, well, if you look at some of the maps, this is from the 1860s. Wood and Portage County have been split off, but like it goes all the way north, right? So yeah, to Lake Superior. Except the thing is, if you don't include anything but Wisconsin, it looks like that. In reality, Michigan's there. So yeah, this is what it actually looked like in 1850. And actually, just as it's looking forward to March, I think we're going to return back to the concept of March Mapness and look at some more maps. And I think what I might do for one of them is just kind of do a deep dive on the evolution of how we came to be the shape that we did. But anyway, point is, it doesn't go all the way to Lake Michigan or Lake Superior. So going back to this, I think what that maybe meant is the borders in their mind, because the border was always there. It was, as we can see from this picture, it's still kind of being situated, like where exactly that border is going to be. But clearly Michigan is up here. But I think if you follow the lines all the way up, I think that's what it's referring to. If you just keep taking those all the way up, anything that's in Wisconsin is part of it within those two ranges on the east and west side. That is Marathon County. But either way, I have been guilty, and I don't know specifically if I said this during that program that it went all the way to Lake Superior. I think I might have, but I have said that before. So there's a correction, and it's something that is, again, even corrections can lead to some interesting further stories. So yeah. Okay. All right, let's see what's next. What? Here's the wheel. Okay, looks like another story to expand on. Yep. All right. Well. Okay, let's do this one. So as part of our People You Should Know, the last round of them that we did, November, I think it was, I talked about Louise Elster, who was a fourth grade teacher here in Wausau, was a amazing woman in many regards. And you can go back and watch the program itself if you want to learn more about her and you missed that one. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and I don't think that I really got into too deeply, was her role in the local music scene. So this is her on the far right here, probably around 1920, early 20s. This is the Jacob Ruder and the Wausau Philharmonic Society. Although I think at this point they had renamed themselves the Wausau Symphony Orchestra. But this is them playing up at the farm for a concert. And it's really interesting. This is one of the earliest pictures of this ensemble or anything like it in Marathon County. And in terms of the music history, it is like we know when Reuter came up. We know that back in 1898, he started the first sort of ensemble for classical music like this. He brought his students together and anybody who could kind of play, and they called themselves the Philharmonic Society. But after that, it gets a little fuzzy. We have a couple different brochures, we have a couple little things here and there. But it's not really until it gets reestablished after World War II that we really have a firm idea of what was happening. And so there's this period from like 1898 to the 1940s where we know that they played, but like we don't really know what's going on. And Louise Elster is actually one of the reasons that I have been able to fill in the gap there. This is an article that she was quoted very heavily for in 1973 about the anniversary of the Reformation. Or actually, I'm not even sure exactly why they said 50 years, but they just kind of went back to 1923. And she talks a lot. She talks, fills in the gaps because she was here. She came to town, and started teaching and was an active member of the Wassa Symphony Orchestra. And ultimately, she left us her, excuse me, her day books. I have her journals that say, yeah, went to rehearsal. Bad weather, not too many people. Or, hey, there was a concert and we had pretty good. We had 40 people show up. And that's something that like, so thankful that she kept that diary because it's not just her life. There's so many reasons that, her diaries speak to the larger history of the community that she lived in. But this is just one example for me as somebody who really enjoys music history. I was able to glean some stuff that otherwise you wouldn't keep track of. I mean, I don't go to rehearsals when I play in the Wassa Symphonic Band and things like that. Like, I don't go to rehearsals and then write down how many people showed up or how many, after a while they all kind of blend together. But thanks to people like Louise Elster, we have documented of some of these things, which is very cool. Okay. We got time for maybe one more here. Let's do one more. Maybe two. We'll see. Okay. I guess I'm gonna have to share a secret here. Okay. Well, what? I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to pull back the curtain a little bit here. This is the wheel. So the actual I did actually use the this site here. You can click and it'll do the spinny thing. But it turns out that in putting this together, last week I sat down and I created. Oh, here we go. Share another secret here. I sat down and I wrote out a short list of like, here are 20 things that, I went back and looked at the videos and I was like, okay, I didn't talk about this or I cut this. And then I went back in actually preparing for this and I found, oh, actually, I did. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I actually did cover. Very frequently, it turns out that when I hide something, when I say, that's not enough time to get into that, I will mention it. If there's a question that is outstanding, usually I will let you know. If there's a correction, there's very rare where I like confidently say, this is what it is, and then I find out it's wrong. Not to say that that can't happen. But it turns out what I thought was going to be a very easy process of just pulling together all of the stuff that I used to do, that I cut out, is not so easy. I actually struggled to find things to talk about, which I guess is maybe good in some ways. I know I do cut things out occasionally, but a lot of times it's just not. It's stuff that isn't very fun. It's sort of like here's a downer of a story that's sort of an addendum, or it just doesn't fit on its own. And so anyway, the end result was when I actually totaled up the number of things that I could talk about, it was not really. I had already kind of settled on this idea of spinning the wheel, so I apologize for the subterfuge here. A little bit of a lie. I did actually just pre-record, so I knew what things would end up coming up. So I don't know. There's a secret for you, and I think maybe we'll just end it on that note, I guess, because as it turns out, that's all I prepared. There's a couple other little things here and there, but. Yeah, apparently this is harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be easy, just pulled together a bunch of stuff. I will say I also did. I had a hard drive fail, where I kept most of my presentations late last year. So maybe there would have been more stuff on that, but I couldn't access those programs to see what I cut out. But honestly, like, yeah, I went back and I watched, and I do talk about most of the stuff. You're not missing out on too much. So hopefully you don't mind that, and enjoyed the program for what it was anyway. So yeah, I guess if anybody has any questions, this is kind of a weird one to expect questions or comments, but we can certainly do that. I guess while we are waiting, see, I mean, I just as I mentioned, next week, let's see, here we go. Next week. So we are going to be doing, kind of finishing out the month, this sort of miscellaneous month, with just taking public questions. We've gotten a couple already, but it's not too late to get your question in. If you have one, feel free to comment on this video, or we have a pinned post on our Facebook page. I think that's still pinned, and just respond, or get in touch with us. Send me an email or what have you. On our website, there's a submissions form if you want to put that in there. Yeah, and we're just gonna just kind of take a brief look at a bunch of different questions. There's a nice little mix of things, and we'll see what we can talk about. So that's the idea. Anyway, not seeing any comments or anything, which is okay. Again, appreciate you sticking with me. It's kind of a weird one. Appreciate you the opportunity just to experiment a little bit and see how this works. Hopefully that was fun. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, again, if you have any last minute questions in the next couple days, if anything occurs to you, and by the way, the questions can be anything, big picture, very specific. Don't even really have to be at Marathon County. There's always just something you're just wondering about. We can take a crack at whatever. But yeah, let us know those. Otherwise, come back next week and see some other miscellaneous little stories based off of questions that people have asked. And yeah, hope you have a wonderful week in the meantime. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.